And then God didn't even let me finish another sentence. He just, boom. And he just asked, "Why don't you ask me to fight them off for you?"
And you're locked into another episode of the Anilujah podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm glad to be back with you, making that intersection between faith and animation and delivering those redundant analogies you've come to know and love. And every once in a while, we'd like to kind of break away from the mold of one of our usual episodes and give you something a little bit different, but that's still encouraging and inspiring. We've done this a few times in the past, and today is no exception. I have with me author and animator Miranda Markley, who has an amazing and impactful story to tell. Miranda, thank you so much for being with me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. A little nervous, but so far so good. So
Awesome. Well, again, glad to have you. So, for our audience, in about 30 seconds to a minute, give us like a little bit about you.
all right, speed run time. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I grew up in a very Christian, more like the 90s, more stricter parents. Like rock music is bad, pop music is bad, even if it's Christian. You can forget Newsboys or Mercy Me or Stephen Curtis Chapman. None of that. Southern gospel hymns basically is what. Of course, we never followed those rules because I'm the youngest, so all the older kids were doing stuff and listening to all kinds of music. So we never followed that. So I grew up in that household. Grew up kind of academically behind, so I was very behind. I didn't know how to read or write until like 9, 10, 11 years old. I was put into homeschooling groups where they expected you to know how to do that. And as a result of being different from everyone and having to hide that I was different from everyone, I had to learn how to lean on God at a very young age because life was hard for me even as a kid. And yeah, so I mean, other than that, it's not like I had a bad family or anything, and they've gone past that point. They recognize that Christian pop music is not bad, and things like that. They've kind of moved away from things like that. But just like Pokemon's bad, things with witches in it is bad, even if it's showing that they're bad. Except for the Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is always the exception, but I don't. So they kind of moved away from that.
Yeah, I would always find it very interesting, like the stuff that was the exception, and like, but it still has magic in it. So yeah, that's wholesome magic, and like, is it though? And like you, I kind of grew up in a strict household, so wasn't allowed to watch rated R movies, which is probably for the better. I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music, so it was always turned on to a Christian radio station. I had loads of uh, CCM albums ranging anywhere from like pop to punk rock, Reliant K, Hawk Nelson, all those bands. Um, and then I think it was when I was like 17, like going to adulthood, going into like college, where my mom said, it's like, there's like secular music that's actually like good. It doesn't like have any bad words. I'm like, oh, I know, mom. I've been listening to that since I was 13.
Yeah. I can relate to that. The type of stuff we were listening to was more like Breaking Benjamin and Linkin Park. So a little
Yeah.
bit, not really in the Christian world. We weren't really that. I wasn't really aware of that many Christian artists at that time when I was like a toddler and stuff. I became more aware of it as I got older. But yeah, I get what you mean.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Miranda, for telling us a little bit about yourself. We're going to get to know a little bit more about you through a few interview questions. So, first off, what sparked your love for storytelling?
I didn't really know that I had a love for storytelling until just a few years ago when I started making comics and stuff. As a toddler, I remember drawing pictures, picking up the pictures, showing it to my mom, and telling her what the story was. Then drawing another picture, and it also went with the story, and just kept doing that, even though they were just like scribbles and stuff, because I wasn't good at art and I couldn't read or write. So I just remember doing that.
Yeah, shit. Awesome. So, going along with that, was there a specific children's book or animated film that kind of influences your style?
So as far as art style goes, I grew up in like the late '90s, early 2000s, and we had a ton of '90s stuff. And the '90s was really, really creative. So I can't really pinpoint anything specific. It was mainly anything animated, comics from the library, mangas from the library, graphic novels from the library. You had Disney, you had Pixar, you had DreamWorks, you had a lot of media coming out, a lot of animation, whether it was two-dimensional or three-dimensional. But I tended to like the anime art style more and was tended to be more drawn to that, but I still liked the American Western art style too. So
And I've seen a few of your reels and a few of your posts where you do a work in progress or kind of show where you are with a particular like character or animation. And correct me if I'm wrong, the characters are kind of like celestial when it comes to like animals or kind of like more of the rounded characters. There's not like those hard edges that you would see in traditional anime. Am I on point on that, or am I mistaken on that?
so as far as like celestial, so the I have one character I think that you've seen, and I went ahead. I don't know where it's at on the camera, but this one is supposed to be a representation of God and Jesus. That's why it looks more like celestial and stuff. I would say before I used to draw more anime. I used to just draw exclusively in that style, but now I've kind of created my own when I was working on my series, The Spirit Seeds. I didn't want it to be anime or manga. I was actually going for a realistic, semi-realistic approach, and it still ended up being anime looking. And people call it a manga, even though that's what not what I was going for. But basically, I would say just Western art style and anime art style kind of mixed together.
Alright, awesome. Now, kind of going along with Spirit Seeds, since that's a publication that you have put out, when you sit down to create a storybook, do you start with the words or the visuals, or do they kind of like mesh together when you're creating?
So I usually start with writing, so that I have to start with writing because drawing takes a long time. And if you don't have a clear picture of where you're going, you're going to end up wasting a lot of time. So I normally start with writing, but during writing process or during when you're drawing, after the writing is done, sometimes you have to go back and say, okay, this does not work like I thought it was going to, or going to have to rewrite stuff. And so then you might have to redraw some stuff too as a result.
Now, kind of getting more back into your faith background, how does your personal worldview influence the way that you write?
So I would say that it influences everything that I write. I don't know how exactly I would basically because like I told you my background, I've had to lean on God throughout my life because I've been different from everybody and kind of been an outcast and a loner and had to hide trying to pretend to be like everybody else. And the only person that I could be honest with was God just during my life as a kid and as a teenager and even as an adult. So, that's kind of how I write, how I view it from my personal relationship with Jesus. That's the worldview that I'm looking through. That's just everything. That is what I write. That is what I want to show people, just the love of God and showing people that and making them realize He doesn't care. You don't have to be a perfect person. It's not about your behavior. It's about are you willing? And that's it. So that's kind of where I come from, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. And I think the depiction of what you gave being an outcast or different, I think that's a good analogy for being a Christian because we are supposed to be different. We are somewhat of an outcast when it comes to the rest of, society, as they say. So we're now getting to kind of what I would call the meat of this episode. So this last question, this will then lead us into your story. Can you tell us about your upcoming children's book that you're working on and what inspired it? And then take it from there.
All right. So the children's book I'm working on is called This Little Light of Mine, and for children who are battling bad dreams. And it's still a work in progress, so that title might change, but This Little Light of Mine is going to stay the same. But the reason why it's about battling bad dreams is because that's a few years ago, that's where I was. Just kind of give you a short version and then I can go into more detail. A few years ago, I was caught into a battle with nightmares, what the world calls sleep paralysis, which is really just demon attacking you when you're in a vulnerable state during, people call it REM state or REM sleep or whatever, but it's yeah, no, those things are not just figments of your imagination. They are real. So just for people to understand and know. It's a demonic attack. So, and then also hearing voices at one point while I was awake. So a lot of stuff was going on, and it was a lot of stuff happened that led up to this before this happened. But basically, I was battling with that, struggling with that. I was having a lot of hard times. This went on for a while. But during that time, there were different times where a man would appear in a dream and like the demons would leave immediately. It was just an instant. And then sometimes he'd turn into a ball of light and would make a way of an escape from the room I was in or trapped in or whatever. And when I followed, I would wake up. So that happened a few times where there was a ball of light, and that's what inspired the ball of light in the children's book. That's what inspired the name This Little Light of Mine as well. But also to kind of go into more deep depth with that as well, the reason why it says for children battling bad dreams is because it was a battle, and I was trying to win it. I was trying to fight it. I thought that I had to. Growing up in my Christian background, and especially like this Christian school that I went to that was not good. I felt the need that it was up to me. I was supposed to say that these things are supposed to leave in Jesus' name, that I was the one that was supposed to speak. I was the one that was supposed to do it. And I wasn't confident enough to do that because why would these things listen to me? I was scared. I wasn't confident enough, and I didn't want people wondering why I was yelling in the middle of the night and wondering what was going on because I didn't tell anybody about it. What were they going to do? So I just was. But during that, eventually, finally, after this went on probably about a week or something, something startled me awake immediately, like right as I fell asleep. It was boom, you're in the sleep paralysis state again. Something popped up, startled me awake, and I woke up immediately and just broke down, started crying, and just praying to God in my head, just silently saying, God, I can't do this anymore, and just explaining what was going on and why it was bothering me. And God spoke, and He showed me by what He said that He it wasn't a battle that I was supposed to be trying to fight. It was something that I needed to give him, and he would take care of it, and he was waiting for me to take care of it. Or not me. He was waiting for me to give it to him, and for me to stop trying to take care of it and feeling like it was up to me, and I was just a bad Christian, and I just was weak in a person and didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, like, how hard and how scary that was for you, during that time. But that definitely gives a good kind of the brief, synopsis of kind of what inspired this. So now go ahead, if you don't mind, into the full explanation.
Okay, so only told this story to a few people. Most of the time it's been over text, but basically to start, this is what was happening. I just had finished the Spirit Seeds book 1. I was like, this happened like 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I just started the Spirit Seeds book 1, and I was doing art commissions. And the people pleaser that I am, I like to do it fast. I like to get it out quickly. And I do not. This might sound weird to some people. I didn't realize that bodies had limitations. I didn't realize that they could break and that they could not be fixed sometimes. I didn't even understand that because I was so used to when I was working on the Spirit Seeds, I get up at 6 a.m. and work till 8 p.m. So I wasn't used to, I didn't realize that that was a factor that you could actually injure yourself because it had never happened to me before. So doing art commissions, I really went too much, too long, for too many hours and no breaks, and I was working on an art commission, and I remember I looked down at my arm because there was this weird twinge, I guess, in my arm that I had never felt before. I remember looking down at it and being like, "What the heck is that?" But I kept drawing because I had a commission to do, and I was almost done. And you know how when somebody's calling your name, but you don't hear it right away. Somebody says like, "Josh, Josh, Josh." Like it gets louder. And
Yeah,
as
sometimes
you're,
I'm like, what did you say?"
yeah, but you hear it, but you don't hear it until the third time. So that's what happened to me, but it was like coming from my spirit, and I was engrossed in drawing, but it wasn't my name. It was saying stop, stop, stop. It just kept getting louder. And I realized, and I was like, oh snap, that was God. But I'm an idiot. So I kept drawing anyway because I was almost done. And I was like, it's okay, God. I'm almost done with this commission, and then I'll stop. Well, that's what set my arm over the edge, and after that, I was done. I couldn't draw anymore, and because of that, I tried chiropractors, I tried massage therapists, I was trying different things. Nothing was working. It wasn't getting better. I tried not moving my arm. I tried trying it again. It's like, "No, you're done. It's over," basically. So like I said, with my background before, I was behind academically. The only thing that I had was drawing. That was my future. That was my hope. That is what everything was in. Is it's like, well, if I don't know how to read and write, maybe I can still make it if I get good enough at drawing. If I don't know how to do math, English, all this stuff, maybe I can still make it if I get good enough at drawing. Maybe I won't need any of that stuff if I can just get good enough at this, then this is what's going to carry me, basically. And that was where all my stock in. So now that was gone. I knew that God was calling me to be an author and make comics and stuff and things. And so I just remember praying, said, I've ruined everything, God. There's no point to me being here anymore. And because I couldn't even do what I knew God wanted me to do because I messed up and ruined everything. I asked Satan to help me kill myself, is what I did. I had made plans to go to the movie theater with a few friends before leading up to this, before I had asked that. But my plan was after I was going to pretend that everything was fine. I was going to have fun with my friends and not care. But as soon as I got home, I was going to shut the garage door, go into the car, and basically die of that poisoning, I guess, is from suffocation by turning on from the
Oh,
exhaust.
carbon monoxide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was my plan. And yeah, I knew that this would be the last time that my friends would see me, and I'd see them. But I was still happy to be around them, but that was my plan afterwards.
I find it very interesting that the masking that we do when we're battling with something because we feel that we're the only people who can fix it and we don't want to reach out to others because if we can't fix it, then nobody else can. We've given up hope on God, we turn to the enemy for assistance. And a lot of people say, well, there were no signs, or, we had no idea. So I just find, that's how the masking works, that we can't, like, it's so normal, like, to the outside. People, looking at you like, oh, she's happy go lucky. She would never think of, suicide or, as I say, unaliving themselves, now. So just fine. During that time, like, was his voice like deafened and the voice of the enemy was just becoming louder and louder?
No, it just was coming from a place of I've ruined everything and I can't fix it. And the massage therapist won't work. The chiropractor won't work. You told me to stop and I didn't listen, and now I just ruined everything. And so I didn't see that there was any way that going back, and I didn't want to live if I didn't get to do art anymore. So yeah, so going to the movie theater with my friends, and everything was fine. Nothing, they didn't know anything was wrong. I wasn't feeling like anything was wrong either. I was at peace with this decision, basically. And I was just like, this is my friends, and I love my friends, and I'm happy that I'm here with them. But this is my decision. But the whole time is like, I don't care, God, I'm going to die. That's what I was in there the whole time. And I went to the bathrooms. After I went to the bathroom, there was a fire that was growing in my stomach, and it was painful. And I'd never felt that before, and I didn't know what was going on. So I was kind of like, okay. So as I'm walking out of the bathroom, it kept getting worse. So I felt bad about asking my friends to leave, but I just told them, hey, I don't feel good. I think I need to go. And just immediately they were out because I had a good friend. So immediately they didn't stop, no time. They're like, okay, let's go. And then on the way to the parking lot, I started blacking out. And then when I don't think I ever did, but it was like, it was starting to black out. The pain is getting worse in my stomach. We're in the car and my friend is driving. I'm in the back seat with my other friend. Um, but it just kept getting worse. And at one point, uh, it just hurt really bad. And I've never experienced that since then, but it just was like, I don't understand. It hurt so bad. But anyways, it was the longest car ride of my life. And so then we finally got back to my house, and the pain stopped as soon as we got to my house, which was weird. But I basically told my friends, like, I think God's trying to tell me something. And I just explained to them what my plan was after this, that I was planning on killing myself with the car. And they're just like, wow. So they told my parents by texting them or something. Then I had a conversation with them, and then I felt fine and I had hope again and was ready to figure it out. And then I went to sleep that night, and I had, uh, I woke up, but I was not awake. I was in that, what the world calls sleep paralysis state. And there was a shadowy figure right next to my bed. And I remembered looking at him and going like, and I was saying, whoa, what's going on? And I was looking around my room trying to figure out what was going on. And at the same time, all of these voices chanting Lord Satan over and over and over again. And then I just remember looking up and saying, "Oh God, I don't, oh help!" Or I can't, didn't say help. I said, "God, I don't want them. I want you." And then I woke up. So that was the first occurrence, and I thought that it was over, and I thought we were done, and I didn't think we were going to have any issues from that point on.
Well, like all that, and you think there's like some kind of end to it, but apparently it could still come back around again, which I believe is what you're getting to that it did.
Well, every night from then on, it was sleep paralysis or nightmares, and it was always these shadowy being things. And it's just every time they were taunting me, raping me, like all kinds of stuff in these dreams. And we were always in a house, and just it was always seemed to be the same house. And I didn't know what was going on, or it was they're outside of my room, and you could see him for a little bit, and then but every time it's just asking God to help, and then He would wake you up. I guess at the final night, like I said, I was like, "Ah, please don't let it happen again." As I'm sitting there stressed, or I'm laying on my bed stressed out like usual, because it's like, please don't let it happen again. I go to sleep, boom, sleep paralysis state. Something, it's like one of the shadowy things. It wasn't even like a jump scare thing, but it was enough to startle me awake. It seemed like it came from over here, and its face was really close to mine. But you can't see their faces, even though they were. Even if it was that close, still couldn't see its face. So it's like, boom, it's here. And that just made me wake up immediately. So that's what kind of pushed me over the edge. And I just started crying. That's when I just said, God, I can't do this anymore. These things, they're keeping me awake. They're pushing me. They're pulling me. I have to get up and pretend that everything is fine the next day and put on this happy smile attitude. It was just like all these things I was saying to God. And then God didn't even let me finish another sentence. He just, boom, and he just asked, "Why don't you ask me to fight them off for you?" Is what he said. But he said it as if he was crying. And that's what shocked me, because I was not expecting that reaction. Because it was my fault I was in this position. And honestly, me saying, God, I can't do this anymore, just telling him what was wrong, that's all that I was doing. I was expecting that I'm just going to complain, tell God what's going on, and then I'm going to go to sleep, and the same exact thing is going to happen. I was not expecting an answer. I was not expecting anything to change. God is patient, yeah, but He didn't waste any time. He interrupted me when it like boom. Like I could not. He couldn't wait to jump in, and had been waiting for me to stop trying to figure this out and try to fight this and try to win against these things or whatever, like I thought I was supposed to do. If that is what has inspired this children's book, which is weird because it's more of a scarier topic, you think that it wouldn't work, but in the children's book, I'm not going to be showing or talking about anything scary.
So as we're wrapping up here, again, once again, thank you so much for your story, to get to know more about you, for allowing our audience to enter this personal, vulnerable backstory that you have. That was the inspiration behind this children's book. For those that want to follow you, keep up with what you're doing, and for your Kickstarter, where can they go to find out that information?
So they can either go to my website, which is mirandaarts.com, and that's it's arts with a Z, so artz.com, and then Miranda is spelled Miranda. And so you can go to my website and you can subscribe to my newsletter if you want to be notified when the Kickstarter launches and things like that. Or you can follow me on Instagram or YouTube.
And we will have the links down in the description to all of Miranda's socials so they can keep up with what she's doing, and the Kickstarter that will be upcoming for this little light of mine. If you want to hear the full backstory of the inspiration of this little light of mine, you can go to the audio version of this podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, and wherever you listen to podcasts. I want to thank Miranda Markley once again for being with us on this episode. And we hope that you are both inspired and encouraged by her story. And if you like this episode, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell for notifications so that you are notified every time I upload a new video. And we will see you on the next one.